hi guys and girls, Emma again. Welcome back to the spare room and to another Patreon build video. Looking at this engine, and it's looking pretty nice. We're getting there. We're waiting for a piston and some feedback on a con rod from someone. But until that, and a cylinder head, which it's on its way. So there are a lot of little things that we can do. One is the cams, and that's probably something we should do because last time we got this cam gear in here and working nice. But we need to make an oiler for here. And this is threaded quarter 40, which is model engineering pipe thread. It's fairly fine thread. It's just the thing, I think. And we want to make a brass oiler, and it wants to sit up, I guess, looking at it probably about that high. So we want maybe an 1/8 or 3/16 of hex, and then 3/4 of an inch of brass barrel. We're going to make a wick oiler for this, I think, rather than drip or anything else. That's probably all it needs. The thing's not going to run a whole lot. So just looking at some graph paper here, just to recap, we'll make this probably twice full size. This drawing. With a hex here, like this. And I think we'll just put a square bottom hole in there, something like that. And a thread on here. And then we'll make a pipe that we can probably push fit or Loctite or something in here. Probably up against this shoulder, and leave this hole a bit smaller so it doesn't fall down inside the engine, which is probably a really good idea. Let's make that sort of that long, that pipe. And then we can probably just put a wire in there as good as anything, or it'll feed up a wire okay. And I think a nice cap over there outside that pushes on with a vent hole in it. I think that's probably the best. The bigger the cap, the less likely it is to get lost. The less likely it is to bounce off. So I think we'll make quite a long, fairly thin cap, probably with a nice ring on here, and maybe a nice ring on here on the metal to match. So that looks as clear as mud, doesn't it? That's sort of what we're going to do. If we make this diameter here, if we go imperial 1/2 inch, and this one here 3/4 inch, this one here 3/16, and this one here, there's a bit of thread in the hole. I reckon if we made it quarter, a bit less, threads 1/4 by 40, and we'll just check that again because it's a little while since I did that. So I'm going to check that again before I make it. We need to find a bit of brass tube, will be next to go in there. And we can drill this out or machine it out probably 3/8 or a fraction bigger. If I've got an 11mm end mill, that might be a really good way to do that. And we should have a pretty nice, I think, a pretty nice sort of an oiler. So let's get some materials together. So I had to dig around in the scrap box, and I'm not going out, so I'm probably not going to buy new materials. I've got some 5/16 hacks, and I've got a piece of what looks to be about 3/4 brass that's probably nearly long enough to do the job. I've got a piece of that which is probably bronze. Don't like that much. So it needs to clear this surface here. That might be about as big as we want to go with the hexagon. This is much too big a diameter. So we're going to get by with that. I guess probably the best way to do this would be to face one end and then machine one side down and turn it around the chuck and machine the rest, because we're going to put a bit of a bead on the bottom here, like such, I think. So that sounds like a pretty good plan. We need to machine this end first and drill it all the way through, bore it, and then machine the first part of this for the lid, and then turn it around and machine the bottom. Then we'll make a hex piece to go in the end and probably silver solder them together. And we've got a piece of nice 532 copper to go up the middle. So we're pretty well set. Let's get in and make it. Over to the lathe. So I roughed this out and turned it round and machined the other end with a hole through it. And then I've got a piece of hex and I've machined that so that that fits on there nicely so we can silver solder it. What I'm going to do now is drill this right through and then recess it for a little tube. And then part it off and turn it round, and we're going to put a thread on the other end and silver solder the two bits together, and when we've done that we're going to grip it on the hexagon and machine this all up to size. That's a nice fit in there. So that's the first half of the job done of this piece. Let's turn him round. So I've put the collar in and reversed that and put a thread on the end of it. We've got a piece that's starting to look pretty good. That is 1/4 by 40, so I've just run a thread on that. It's pretty quick and a bit of brass. And that fits in there like that. What we're going to do is silver solder that. And chuck him up this way around and finish this to size, and so it looks nice, and then we'll start thinking about making a cap. Next job here while our spike mower is going is to silver solder this. Just a bit of flux around it, a bit of 45% silver, and a nice soft bushy flame. So I'm going to quench this out and have a bit of a look at it. I think this will be good. It doesn't need very much solder at all. Tiniest little bit. I've used about, I reckon, probably off the end of this 1.6 16th stick or 16 gauge or whatever you want to call it. I've used probably 1/8 of an inch. So it doesn't need much solder. So I've turned this round and bored the inside out nice and true and machined the outside beautifully. I think nice enough. I think I'm going to just give that a rub with a bit of a sanding sponge there. And we'll take this out of here. And I reckon if we grip this right up the end here nicely, we can give this end a nice clean up too, and we'll take it out and have a bit of a look at it. So next job is to clean up a piece of that copper tube. Just face the ends and deburr it. I've just got an Allen key that fits that reasonably well. And I guess the smart thing would have been to tap and thread this, but it's not going to happen. So I'm just going to put a bit of Loctite on there. I think it's going to be heaps good enough. A bit of the not stuffing around Loctite. And we'll give that a few minutes just to set before we take the Allen key out. And hopefully all we've got to do is to make a lid for that. Camera's getting a bit flat, and the lawnmower man's getting a bit loud, so I'm going to let that set, and I'm going to charge the camera up a bit, maybe do a little bit of editing, and come back and we'll make a lid for it. So I found a short bit of brass again, and I've chucked this up. It doesn't want to be too huge, but I'm going to clean it. I'm going to bore it first, and then I'll machine it down till it looks pretty good on the outside. I'll probably leave a lip on the top here, and then we'll know sort of roughly where to turn the other end down to. This was just an offcut straw. So next job is to drill this and to bore it out to fit this oil cup, I think. So, bored that out to a nice fit on there. I'm going to clean this up. We'll just mark the outside so we know roughly how deep that is. And it's pretty close to nearly there, so let's clean the outside of it up a bit. It wants to be a little bit thinner than that, I think. And we'll turn him around and we'll face the other end off and put a little hole in him for a vent. And give him a polish up and have a bit of a look over at the bench. So we've got an oiler. The vent hole in the top and a lid. And we've taken as much out of there so that we've got some capacity as we possibly can. And we've Loctited the tube in. We've got a hex on this side to screw it in and a thread. Last job is to find a piece of wire. I've just bent up a piece of spring wire there like that, It's a bit rough, but it does the job. It just works as a feeder for the capillary action through there. And that works the same as a wire rope. It gives a nice regular drip. If we have a look at this, put some oil in it. So that's a nice even drip. We'll screw that in, see how it looks. Put the lid on. That looks just the ticket there. It's great. So that's another part done. We're getting a fair bit. We're getting oil through there. I think that's plenty to run that engine. It looks pretty good to me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching on Patreon and we're one of my new Patreon supporters, that's awesome, and thank you so much. You make jobs like this worthwhile and make jobs like this possible, which is really, really nice. I wouldn't be building an engine like this if it wasn't for you guys. So next job's the cams. Hopefully we get some parts, piston and rod and cylinder head, back from the States, because we've got some hard patches in the head, and I've stuffed the piston up, which is my fault. So we've got a new piston coming, a new head coming, and we've got a conrod coming from JB from Oz, and hopefully we get some more done on this pretty quick. Be kind to each other, and more soon, guys and girls. GoPro, stop recording.